Joe Russell with the Front Line with Joe and Joe. Once again, let us go into the breach. Sadly, in the Universal Catholic Church, there's a lot of confusion right now. And I recently read a tweet that I think summarizes why there's confusion. I'm not going to say who basically tweeted it. That's not my style. I want to address ideas. It's not for me to attack people. But I want to talk about this tweet because I think this is at the root of the problem and has been the root of the problem in the Catholic Church for decades. This is how it reads. While Catholic teaching has an essential role in moral decision-making, it is conscience that has the privileged place. I'll stop right there. That is incorrect. Primacy of conscience does not usurp doctrine. Does not. There are absolute truths. Your truth does not usurp universal truth. Just because you feel a certain way, and you could be sincere in that feeling, that does not trump the church's moral teaching on something that could be bedrock for 2,000 years. That's number one. Second part of that tweet, as Pope Francis has stated, the church's role is to form consciences, not replace them. Well, I think he's twisting the Pope's words here. Of course, it is the church's role to form consciences. And the church trumps your truth. You see, heaven is God's house, and we get in on his terms, just like you have a house. Say in your house, you say to me, you have to take your shoes off before you come in, and say, I refuse. You have every right to say, I'm not allowed in because it's your house. Well, heaven is God's house, and he has rules. And we get in on his terms. It's the same thing with receiving the Eucharist. We receive the Eucharist on God's terms, not our own, even if our feelings are sincere on an issue. If your conscience, you could be sincere on a feeling or an issue, and I have been. I look back at my life when I was a young man. There were certain things that I thought were not issues. But looking back as a 52-year-old man, clearly they were issues. And that's what it means by saying it is the church's role to form a conscience. But with regard to replacing them, no, I think that's too harsh of a language. The church's role is to form a person's conscience, and it is the person who should recognize the church having authority, because it is the body of Christ, and to yield to that basic issue, doctrine, and or statement. Sadly, that's what's not going on. Basically, when we do that, what we're saying is, I'm God, I'm right, and you're wrong. Somehow we separate God from his church. That's not correct. That's not correct. And when we separate ourselves from the vine, we will never bear fruit. We will never bear fruit. That's why it is the church's role, and Pope Francis correctly stated that, to form consciences. But it's not for you, your conscience, to replace the moral truth of the church. And that's been going on for decades. That's why we have issues, and that's what's going on now. And part of the reason why that is going on now is there's a lack of clarity coming from people in authority. The church must always be clear. Jesus was always clear. He said, let your yes be yes and your no be no, and anything else comes from the devil. Well, the same comes from someone who has authority. Any type of leader or manager, when there is confusion, you clear it up. Make it clear. That's what's not going on right now, and that's why we have a mess, and it is a mess. But bottom line, at the end of the day, Catholic teaching has an essential role in moral decision-making, and this is where this goes awry, when it says the conscience has a privileged place over moral decision-making of the Catholic Church. Absolutely not. That is incorrect. All our errors stem from that. Once we figure that out, we'll bear fruit. Why? Because when we're connected to the vine, we bear fruit. And outside of the vine, as Christ said, you will accomplish nothing.